All right, and good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a Sabido Gigante here on Cafecito con Colona. I'm glad you're joining us this morning, and we are really thrilled to have you here. Let me make sure that our settings are correct. We're now public, so you are welcome to share. We'll give a couple minutes or a minute or so to let folks get situated with their cafecito so they can have Cafecito con Colona as we shine a spotlight of gratitude and incredible impact of HopeWorks. And we are thrilled to have a trifecta of awesome leaders in our community with us this morning. And it's good to see you, Dr. Joe McCaffrey. Thank you for joining me every opportunity you get with Cafecito con Colon. I hope you're doing well. And Ms. Gallegos, I miss seeing you in person, but we shall do that soon. Good to see you this morning. Selena Sierra, who never misses, and she always clicks off right at 9:59, which is my sign that I got to land the plane and wrap up the episode because Selena says goodbye. And I know that I'm at the top of the hour. So good to see you this morning. Dr. Lawrence Roybal, good morning to you, sir. And I wish you a wonderful holiday weekend as we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice on this upcoming Memorial Day, where I will be thrilled to be able to stand with so many beautiful northern New Mexicans up in Cuesta, New Mexico, up on the enchanted circle of our beautiful northern New Mexico, here in the land of enchantment, the Tierra del Encanto, the 47 star on that beautiful flag of the United States of America. I want to say that I am really looking forward to my time up north on Monday as we unveil the headstone of a great civil and public servant, Senator Cisneros, the late Senator Cisneros. They produced a beautiful, beautiful tribute headstone to him, and we're going to unveil that. They have every year for Memorial Day up in Cuesta, the Field of Flags, which is a very powerful thing right at the bottom of Bandera Mountain, the Flag Mountain. And they have the names of fallen heroes on each of these. I think they're 5x7 flags, and there's just hundreds of them there at the bottom of the mountain. It's a very powerful way to observe Memorial Day and think about our heroes who have sacrificed. And on that trip, you can stop at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which is really one of the best in the nation right here in our land of enchantment. A lot of people don't know that's up there, but it is true. It is a beautiful gem in the crown that is the crown of our state of New Mexico. Also this weekend, I have the privilege of engaging with Gadsden Independent School District. I'll be providing the commencement address for Chaparral High School. A few hundred wonderful New Mexicans graduating down there. That's tonight. And then tomorrow night, I'll deliver another commencement address for another fantastic school in southern New Mexico. All that before observing Memorial Day on Monday. So I've got a packed weekend, but this is certainly going to be a highlight of my weekend, being able to spend some beautiful time with Greg and Anam and Mark Fidel. We're just so pleased that the three of them could join us. This is a great organization that has a huge impact in our community, and it deals with an issue and individuals who are so often invisible in our community. And this morning, we are not going to allow that important part of our community, an important part of our community in need, to be invisible. We're going to shine a beautiful spotlight on the story and the work of this incredible organization, HopeWorks. And I want to start out by saying thank you to Patricia L. Chavez, who is a substantial volunteer, an incredible advocate for this organization. But she, I mean, I've been doing Cafecito now for over a year. I've scaled it all the way back to Sabido Gigantes, and Friday mornings with the New Mexico Hispanic Heritage Committee with whatever guests they schedule. And she made sure that I did not fail to focus, that I needed to make sure that as I've lifted up so many great organizations, that this one should be front and center as soon as possible. And I'm so thrilled to be able to do that today. Now, as I often do, I'm going to put up just a few links while my guests are patient and waiting. Speaking of spectacular New Mexicans, good morning, Lynn Troyan. Indeed, it is a beautiful morning, and it's great to think of you. Every time I do, my heart grows just a little bit. Thank you, Lynn Troyan. Speaking about our hearts and reflecting upon important things that are coming up this weekend, Tuesday is our special election for the 1st Congressional District. Do not forget to get out and vote. Folks know I've had the Honorable Melanie Stansbury here on my show. I look forward to casting my vote for her on Tuesday. I'm an election day voter, but if you're an early voter, don't forget today is your last day for early voting. Get out there and let your vote be your voice in this special election for the 1st Congressional District here in central New Mexico. The vacancy was created when Secretary Deb Haaland was elevated to secretary from this first congressional district. We're pleased for her being able to be in that position and to provide a voice and a lens to look through that is a lens of an Indigenous woman for the first time in our nation's history. Which I'll use that as the pivot point to reflect for just a moment on an important history point for us. And that was 100 years ago. It was 100 years ago on May 31st and June 1st, but it was a very, very painful and difficult stain on our journey as a nation. This, of course, was the Tulsa Massacre. It's amazing to me, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I really want to focus on HopeWorks and their good impact. But I do want to say that I still have plenty of friends who say there is no systemic racism. There is no structural racism, that we have addressed the issue and it's time to move on. I just want to, this is fascinating. This is a data point. You want to talk about systemic racism. We should understand that not only do most people I talk to who are not women and men of color say, you know, I never really heard about this Tulsa thing until just this last year or two. Even one of my closest friends who I spent some time with in the last day, he said, you know, I guess it was about 15 years ago that I first heard about the Tulsa Massacre and Black Wall Street and what that community was like and what happened to it. And which is fine. All right, we grew up in New Mexico. We talk a lot about history, but we miss this piece of history. Structural systemic racism. How about this? It wasn't until 1996 that the history books that were used in Oklahoma actually mentioned the Tulsa Race Massacre. 1996. You're talking about planes flying overhead on a community to wipe it out. Unbelievable. But if you think we've solved the problem, I hope you'll take a look at our recent history. Folks that are regulars on Cafecito con Colon, you know I love theconversation.com. Fantastic. They don't have a bunch of pop-ups. They have some sidebars, I think, with some advertising, but for the most part, there's very little advertising. In fact, actually, this is the one that has zero advertising. It's totally contribution driven, but they claim to have academic rigor with journalistic flair, and that's kind of their tagline. But they do a phenomenal job, and so that's the one and only story I am going to post this morning. But it is a good starting point for your reflection. I hope for your reflection over the next few days. As we reflect on the lives given and lost in service to our nation, but also really making sure that the next generation really understands the depth and breadth of the painful history that is race history in America. So with that, let me get ready here. Nancy, thank you for your comment. I couldn't agree more. The insane killings in Tulsa 100 years ago is so appalling. Systemic racism is real. Dr. Mack, thank you for joining me this morning. I love saying Dr. Mack. You know, Steffi got her doctoral degree right here on Cafecito con Colon. Well, not exactly right here on Cafecito con Colon, but while she was a regular guest on, not guest, what do you say, audience member. We watched her over this last year close the deal on that fantastic terminal degree, that PhD. Congratulations, Steffi Mack. We are so proud of you, and it's great to call you Dr. Mack. And her comment is, yes, there is so much history that has been erased purposefully. We have no clue. So I couldn't agree more. And so it's our opportunity on Cafecito con Colon, as we have so many times over the last year, much to the dismay of some of my detractors, we have shined a light on that history that is uncomfortable. Good morning, Dr. Jennifer Gomez Chavez. Good morning, Jessica Corley. Jessica Corley, I think I finally accepted your friend request. You know, we've been at 5,000. I don't know if one of my friends died or they got offended by one of my posts, so they jumped off they unfriended me. So I had 4,999 friends, and so I was finally able to accept you, Jessica Corley, and it's good to be your friend. All right, so with that, let me take a minute here to post up a couple of landing pages as we come up to 9:10, I'm going to post the main landing page. We're going to talk all morning this morning for the next 49 minutes about HopeWorks here in Albuquerque that has had a mission to end homelessness since 1985. So if you have set a table to address this issue of people who are unhoused in New Mexico, and you don't have somebody with HopeWorks perspective and institutional knowledge on this issue, then you're not having a real conversation. So if you've got a collaborative table, if you've got a group of folks that are working on this issue to address those folks who do not have housing, then you need to make sure you're reaching out to HopeWorks and you're collaborating. It is time to bring down the silos. It's time to have an end to scarcity mentality. It's time to have an abundance mentality and realize that in this great nation, in this great state, we should be able to address the issue of homelessness. And we appreciate HopeWorks doing this work for so long, 36 years, I guess. Is that right? If my math is good? I'm the state auditor. I hope I got that right. Anam, did I get that right? Is it 36?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Well, 1985, so almost 36. 36, yeah, almost. Yeah. We're getting there.
You're getting there. All right, we'll make sure and send you a birthday card, and we'll put the year in it so that we can all stay on track with the same data point. But they provide hope to those who are experiencing homelessness. And providing hope is what we've tried to do here on Cafecito con Colon for the last 14 months, as we have tried to shine a light on good individuals and good organizations in our community making a huge difference. And St. Martin's, HopeWorks, these are organizations that make a huge difference in our community and have been doing so for so long. I will just say that one of my favorite stories is, of course, the story of Donovan. I was a huge supporter of his. He and I spent a little bit of time together, and his mom. And I love this young man. And I'm going to hit the landing page here for HopeWorks New Mexico. And if you don't do anything else other than go on there and make a contribution, watch one video, check out Donovan. It will, again, make your heart grow. And yes, Jonathan Muñiz, Panza Llena Dinner Club is all day today. And I know you're bringing dinner to Casa Colon. I told my family they better save me some because I'm going to be out on the road trying to inspire a few hundred graduates and their families. And yes, I will remember if anybody wants to text me anytime after 6:30 tonight. And all you have to do is text me the message, keep it short. Because the only way I'm going to inspire those families in Southern New Mexico during my commencement address is by finishing quickly. Because they just want to graduate. I know that. I'm saying it out loud for my own therapy and to make sure I remember to keep it short tonight. And Greg is thinking, I wish he'd keep this intro short because I'm ready to start talking about the work we do at HopeWorks, and Brian's just going on. I thought we were the guest on the show today, and he is still talking. How does that happen? But I promise, Greg, here I come. There's the main landing page for HopeWorks. So check it out. There's some great multimedia on there. They did a beautiful job of having a landing page that actually draws you in with some great videos straight away. So look, I am going to start with introducing my guests this morning. We'll go in order, and I'm going to start with our co-CEOs. And this is really an interesting model. I have been involved in many social profit, or what we call nonprofit organizations here in New Mexico for many years. And there are very few, in fact, this is really the only one that I'm now getting intimately familiar with that has a co-CEO model. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that's so effective. I know that when you bring two superstars together, you're bound to have not just 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 2 +++. And that's what they get when these great co-CEOs at HopeWorks. And I'm going to start out with Greg. Greg currently serves as the co-CEO of HopeWorks, the largest homeless service provider in New Mexico, with more than 20 years experience in nonprofit leadership and management, whereas Lynn Troyon and I like to call it social profit, because who wants to be part of something that's not, right? Like, it's not nonprofit. Like, you all get more energy and impact out of every dollar that is put into your organization than most for-profit organizations. So let's just be clear about that. You have an incredible impact on our community, and he has got an incredible amount of experience with leadership and management of these social profit organizations. We're really thrilled that Greg is there as a co-CEO at HopeWorks. Prior to joining HopeWorks in 2016, he served as the executive director of ACLU, another fantastic and impactful organization, but he was over there in Idaho. So in 2000, 16, he came here to bring his leadership right here to our beautiful land of enchantment. He's got extensive experience working with at-risk and unhoused populations and is the co-founder of Catch Incorporated, a nationally recognized rehousing program serving families. He also worked as the City of Boise's Fair Housing Coordinator and served consecutive terms as the president of the Boise-Ada County Homeless Coalition. Greg Morris, welcome to Cafecito con Colon.
Thank you for having us this morning, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
You bet. How did you find Albuquerque from Idaho? I always like to figure that out.
Well, it's not a direct route. And, you know, I would just say that sometimes the universe has plans that we're not in touch with until it's right upon us. So I feel really blessed to have been able to make this move 5 years ago and be a part of this incredible organization.
Well, we're thrilled you're here. You're making a difference every day, and I'm thrilled to be able to feature you on today's episode of Cafecito con Colon. Thanks for coming, Greg.
Thank you.
So Anam Mantharam, is that correct? I want to make sure I get this right. I'll tell the whole world that I'm very conscientious about pronouncing names correctly. So Anam, I want to make sure that I have this correct. Is that correct?
Anam.
Anam.
Yep, there you go.
All right. So I was putting the accent on the wrong syllable. Anam. But I'm going to get it right the rest of this episode. Anam.
Right.
Is that correct? Are you sure?
Yeah, and I would say that every time, how about every time you say it wrong, maybe you make a small donation to HopeWorks.
Nice.
You got it. I tell you what, I'm making my first $50 commitment to you right now.
Thank you.
Because I love the work you do, and I want to get your name correct, and I want you to hold me accountable, because, you know, the state auditor is all about accountability, transparency, and excellence in New Mexico. So when we talk about excellence in New Mexico, we've got to talk about Anam, and she doing amazing work as the co-CEO of HopeWorks, the largest homeless service provider in New Mexico. She has over 15 years of social profit or nonprofit and community organization work in multiple states. She's been helping various organizations raise millions of dollars for their missions, and you just saw her do it. Prior to joining HopeWorks, she worked as the development director for the Storehouse Adelante Development Center and Meals on Wheels of Albuquerque. She's also worked for AIDS Project Los Angeles and the City of Hope Cancer Research Center. She holds a master's degree in writing from the University of Southern California, is a recipient of the 2016 Albuquerque Business First 40 Under 40, and she's still under 40, so it's pretty impressive, and the 2019 Women in Business Leadership Award. And if that's not enough for you, how about the 2020 Women of Influence Award? Anam is also a published author, and it is an honor and privilege to be able to have your radiance with us this morning and your incredible work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having us on your show. And I want to say a special thank you to Patricia, too. She's been a champion of ours, volunteer for I don't know how many years, and she's always in our corner. So hi, Patricia, if you're listening.
Oh, you can believe me, she's listening. In fact, she talk about accountability. If I had messed up and not done this episode today, man, she'd have been here at my front door holding me accountable. I promise you that. So Anam, thank you for that. I appreciate you and your work, and I love your background. I'm a big books in the background kind of guy, as you can tell. And I just think your lighting is perfect. I wish I could get my lighting that good. Yeah, like
it's the sun.
Yeah, it's the sun. She's all about the natural light. All right, let me talk about a light in my life. Somebody who I've known for a lifetime, it feels like, and it's all been so positive. I will say that his family first impacted me by way of his father. His father was an incredible public servant, an elected official who couldn't walk into a room without eliciting a smile from just about everybody in the room. He was kind to me when I was a very young man. Back in the days of our New Mexico legislature, when you had greats like the Honorable Representative Fidel and the Honorable Representative Fred Luna from my home county, Valencia County, and in some ways we've kind of lost some of that. In other ways, we've grown in our capacity as a legislature, a body of 112 great public servants. But I guess when you're young, you see and perceive things differently. But I felt so much support and encouragement from the folks back then. And one of the ones who encouraged me deeply and impactfully was Mark Fidel's father, Joseph Fidel, the honorable representative. And no, I'm senator. Did I get that wrong? I got it wrong. Senator.
$50.
As soon right, we're at an even $100. You got a George Washington coming. No, Franklin. Who's on the $100 bill? Boy, I'm in rare form today. I'll just say, when I said rep, it didn't sound wrong, and then I said representative, and I knew I'd gotten it wrong because I finished that out, and I was like, wait, Representative Fidel is not correct. It is Senator Joseph Fidel. He was a member of the upper chamber, and he served with distinction, and he raised an incredible young man who's a leader in his sector and a dear friend of mine. He is currently the co-founder, and he manages all state, local, and educational markets in the United States and all markets in New Mexico for Risk Sense Incorporated. Risk Sense was formed back in May 2015, which was kind of a big year for HopeWorks. And he has served as its finance director, in-house counsel, and head of corporate development. Prior to Risk Sense, Mark owned and operated a litigation support and document management consulting firm, Applied Records Management. His clients included law firms and a number of independent insurance agencies. Mark served as executive director for the Western States School of Banking from 2007 to 2011. He was an adjunct professor at New Mexico Highlands University from 2005 to 2007, and he worked as a commercial defense litigator for the Modrell Sperling Law Firm in Albuquerque from 2002 to 2004. Prior to earning his law degree in 2002 from the University of Denver Stern College of Law, Mark worked as a financial and senior financial analyst for Intel Corp from 1994 to 1998. He has had an impactful journey. In 1994 is when he earned his executive MBA from the University of New Mexico. He's a very proud Lobo. And in 1989, he earned his bachelor's degree in finance at the same place I got my finance degree from New Mexico State University.
Proud Aggie.
That's right. Actually, we're Agbos. See, we're Agbos.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're Agbos. We got UNM colors and NMSU colors, and we are proud of it. So currently, he serves as the chair of the board of directors for HopeWorks, a nonprofit focused on ending homelessness, as we've talked about here in Albuquerque. He's a member of the board of trustees for the Bosque School and heads its philanthropy committee, another force in fundraising. And he serves on the board of directors for the all-important and impactful C&M Ingenuity, and is a member of the New Mexico Tech Council. I got to just say that if it's important, if it's impactful, if it's in technology, if it's in outreach, Mark always seems to be present. And that's not from today when he had all these fancy titles. It's been for as long as I've known him. He is always leaning in. I'm grateful for his friendship. He's made me a better human being. And I'm awesome. It's just awesome to be able to shine the spotlight on you today. Chairman Mark Fidel, welcome to Coffee.
Brian, thank you. Mr. Auditor, Mr. Attorney General candidate, thank you so much for having us on today and for allowing Unum and Greg to have this spotlight for HopeWorks. We were formerly St. Martin's Hospitality Center and changed our name for a variety of really good reasons to HopeWorks. And the organization that we are today is about 11 million in operating budget, approximately 150 employees. They can correct me when I'm wrong on this. But the extent that we work with local and state funders for federal funding, and then also local donors to help end homelessness is extensive, and it's not an easy problem to solve. What we are not is just a shelter, right? A day shelter. It's a very comprehensive, overarching effort to understand and help people resolve the systemic problems that might lead them into a homeless situation and help them get a basis for coming out of that situation. And so that goes all the way from emergent care to then substantive long-term changes to their lives as they deem it possible. And we certainly can offer that support. But thank you for having us on, Brian. It's extremely generous of you and your time. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you for that. What a beautiful snapshot and capture of the kind of the mission and the work. And really, I think if there's one thing that I can get my Cafecito colleagues to walk away from today is really understanding the breadth of the work that really is done at HopeWorks, formerly St. Martin's Hospitality Center. And that means for me, one of the things I love the most is, I think you call it your hope. Let's see, it's this is actually Hope Found, which is one of their programs that actually works very, very diligently and intentionally about getting families into secured housing. So it's all the way from that emergent, let's get a roof over this person's head so they're out of the elements tonight, to getting families housed in permanent housing. And look, my hair's standing up because I got to just say that, this issue is not just, it's not just, it's an issue that's personal to me. Folks that watch regularly know that I didn't have family in New Mexico when I was a teenager. My father passed away when he was 49 years old. And I just had his dream that I'd go to college, and I did. I went down to New Mexico State University without a single blood relative in New Mexico, and struggled. I struggled, and I lost my aid, and I got on suspension and for that aid, and found myself in a position where the car's repossessed. I don't have a place to stay, and I had to lean in on a couple of friends who allowed me to stay on the couch with my bag. So I never had to stay in the elements, but I know even how scary it was and how uncomfortable it was just to be a couch surfer who had some options on which couch I was going to surf on any given night. And that is far less severe than so many New Mexicans in terms of the circumstances they find themselves in. So for me, I appreciate the work you're doing as a volunteer, Mark, and leading this board, chairing this important board. We can't do these things without volunteers in our community. Unum and Greg are doing important work as the leaders and staff members and their team of 150 employees. But without people like you and Patricia, these organizations can't have the impact they have. So I just want to say that I'm grateful for this work and that it is personal to me. And that's why it's easy for me to be able to host you today and say thank you. Thank you on behalf of those who find themselves on the razor's edge, which is kind of where I would consider myself, because I never found myself in the elements, but I did find myself without permanent housing for a bit. And my friends who put that roof over my head, you know who you are. And I still get to stay in touch with a couple of you wonderful ladies who did that for me, who were roommates and took in this heavy-set, redheaded, freckle-faced guy without a place to stay, and you put me up, and I'm grateful. And I still haven't forgotten, and it's been 30 years. Look, let me now pivot over. So thank you, Mark. That's a long way to say thanks. Greg's like, this guy doesn't stop talking. I got something to say. So Unum, let me take it over to you. And what I want to ask you to do is to maybe take a little deeper dive into each of the, number one, you can hit the mission as you do in your elevator speech, the elevator pitch. But then I'd like you to go a little deeper into kind of the cornucopia, the spectrum of the programs that you have, because they do run from that emergent, look, we got to get some food in the belly, we got to get a roof over the head. How are we going to facilitate both of those options for today? And then how do we connect up with wraparound services so that these folks don't fall through the cracks, and ultimately we can get families housed from the incredibly challenged circumstances they're in. And let me just say, we just got breaking news. And I just found out that my $100 bill just got turned into $2. Mark Fidel is matching my $100 contribution, and is I'm very grateful for that. Those
Absolutely.
those match grants, they're very, very, very encouraging. I might have to see how many more pennies I can roll by the end of the hour. But I'm not going to say Unum's name incorrectly. So I will do that at will. If I increase my $100 donation, it won't because I'm getting fined by Unum. So Unum, how about it? Take it away.
All right, thanks, Brian. And thank you, Mark, for matching the donations. You do so much for us already, so we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
As Mark mentioned, we used to be called St. Martin's, so sometimes folks get a little confused, but we used to be St. Martin's Hospitality Center. We're HopeWorks now. And Brian, I really liked the story that you shared, particularly about the fact that you've had a community of people around you, and so that even though you were, precariously housed, you had a community that was there to lift you up. And I kind of look at HopeWorks as being that community for those that are unhoused or maybe on the edge. We hold people up no matter what stage they're in. So whether it's shelter, so our day shelter is where most folks know about us. We offer food, clothing, mail, long-term storage. items that folks who are experiencing homelessness need right away. So the emergent that we're talking about. But that's really the heart of our agency. People come through there and maybe they're not ready yet to talk to someone in behavioral health. Maybe they're not ready yet to think about what it would be like to be housed. So the shelter really does an excellent job of building trust and relationship. And really all of our programs do that, but the shelter being that first entry point is important for that. And so sometimes it takes people years before they feel like, you know what, I can walk upstairs and do a screening and an intake and see what I need in order to be housed. So we do have a robust behavioral health division. A lot of people don't know that actually. We're a comprehensive mental health center. So anyone can come in and receive behavioral health services, therapy, individual group therapy. And in fact, during COVID, we were actually very, very busy. A lot of people were experiencing isolation and stress and anxiety due to COVID. And so we were a resource for people, no matter whether you're housed or not. We do have employment services. So if you're looking for work, if you need help with your resume, clothing, etc., we do have that too. I think that the most important thing that we do at the end of the spectrum is really housing. And, you know, we are a housing first agency. We believe that if you can get someone housed first, you can work on maybe all of the other barriers that might have kept them from being housed. Housing is very, very much a stabilizer. When we think about where we feel at peace, where we feel grounded, that's our home. And so it's hard for someone to work on maybe a substance use issue if they don't have a home. So, you know, we every year house over 450 individuals and children every year. So that's a big number and a big deal. And it's not that we just house people and we leave them. We actually continue to provide the case management and wraparound services that you mentioned to keep them housed. And, you know, as part of those wraparound services, we do offer substance use treatment. So we do have a residential treatment program for that as well called Casa de Phoenix. But we have so many different programs. But I think what I want people to walk away with is knowing that, you know, HopeWorks is large because the problem is large. And really, it's everyone's problem. If even one person is housed, then that means we have failed as a society and a community. There really is no reason why everyone can't have a home. And I just want us all to work together collaboratively and in the community to really focus on, you know, ending homelessness in Albuquerque.
Well, that's a fantastic and aspirational goal. And to hear you even say that we can work on ending homelessness in Albuquerque is encouraging. And that's what HopeWorks is all about. Because I think that if we can believe it and perceive it, we can achieve it. And I think we have to speak about this in a term that is squared with, we can address this issue. I think there is so often on the issue of folks who are not housed. As a community, I think I find more people talking about it from a point of despair and hopelessness instead of from a point of abundance and an idea that if we do work together and that we do support the organizational work that you're doing and so many others, whether it's a supportive housing coalition, whether it's Santa Fe's coalition that is actually going to expand its footprint from what I understand when I had breakfast with their executive director this last week, and they're hoping with some resources that are coming in that they're actually going to start reaching out and doing more work geographically in New Mexico to help support and provide more underpinnings and collaboration with organizations like yours that have been doing it since 1985. This is something we can address as a community. And please, if you've got some despair, stick around for the next 30 minutes because you will leave with hope and knowing that we can end homelessness. So with that, let me take it over. Thank you, Anam, for really eloquently presenting the importance of the work you do and what that work looks like. Thank you so much. So Greg, you are the co-CEO of this fantastic and impactful organization. Tell us about the perspective you bring to the table, having so much experience in the sector of nonprofit, social profit engagement and philanthropy and development, and now in this particular space that you live in, which is HopeWorks Incorporated.
Well, thank you again, Brian. And I wasn't chomping at the bits to speak earlier, so your telepathic powers may be a little faulty, but I wanted to just say that I think you've already said, I think what is the most important perspective to have, and that is, you know, this issue does affect all of us. It's very personal for all of us. And I went through also a period of time in my 20s where I was precariously housed. And I don't think that, I think that kind of sensitization is what leads to the sense of urgency that is required to address this problem. And I think that's really the perspective that our leadership and many of the individuals, incredible individuals that work for HopeWorks, bring to this mission every day, is that sense of urgency. And, you know, addressing homelessness does sometimes get bogged down in local government. It's about managing the problem, just endless meetings, endless talks. And, you know, at the end of the day, the reason I love this agency so much is, you know, we can talk if we need to, but this agency is about action. It's about housing people. It's about providing basic needs. It's not about credit. It's not about, look at what we've done. It's about, there is a sense of urgency, and we need to get on it. We need to act. Words are important, but action is more important. And I think that's the perspective, you know, and, you know, ending homelessness is, as Anam did so eloquently, you know, express, is it is a work that does require all of us. And it is a work that involves action. And so I'm so proud to be a part of this organization, and being a colleague and a fellow co-CEO with Anam is a distinct pleasure. I know we'll talk about the co-leadership model here in a few minutes, but it's inspiring, and having someone with her abilities and her skills and her perspective and what she brings to the table just makes this work joyous. And I would also add the 150 employees that we have working at HopeWorks that bring their joy. You know, this is sobering work, and it's hard work. And as Mark stated in the pre-show, you know, homelessness doesn't take a break. You know, it is a 7-day-a-week, you know, it's a 7-day-a-week issue, and we really can't fall asleep on this problem.
Well, that's exactly right. And let me just give the context for Mark's comment about homelessness not taking a break. I mean, you framed it so well. I'm going to put that in the chat. Homelessness doesn't take a break. And we were just applauding the fact that both of you are at it on a Saturday morning during a holiday weekend. You're at the office, Greg. Anam is here tuned in and dialed in doing the work. And it's Saturday of a holiday weekend. But, you know, the folks that are not housed right now, they don't magically get a place to stay tonight because it's a holiday weekend. Those families who are on the razor's edge don't get a break because there's inclement weather. They're still on the razor's edge. And so I think that I just appreciate your perspective, and homelessness doesn't take a break. And I'm going to put that in the chat. And I think it's important for us all to remember that. And so I want to just say that I know that my fellow Aggie, or I should say our fellow Aggie, and of course that's Mark's fellow Aggie and my fellow Aggie, Paul Gutierrez, talk about a public servant, never elected to public office, so I guess a civil servant, but he has got a servant's heart every day of the year, 365 days of them. He's with us this morning. And Paul, I want to just say that I want to ask you if you'd be willing. I've got an opportunity, and that opportunity is if you'll match my $100 contribution. Mark Vidal has agreed to match your $100 contribution too. So we could turn your $100, my $100, plus Mark's cash into $400. That's 4 Franklins. I checked it out. It's Ben Franklin on the $100 bill. I actually looked in my wallet and couldn't find one. So then I had to Google it. But I did Google it. It's a Franklin. It shows how much I talk about money, huh? So Paul, are you in? I need your $100 because I think I can get Mark Fidel. He is as generous as they come in New Mexico. He's a philanthropist 365 days a year. I think he's willing to match up to $500 this morning for anybody who donates. He just put that in the chat for me. I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for his generosity and his friendship. Paul, if you get me another $100 bill, we'll take 2/5 of Mark's $500 out of his wallet, you and me. And then let's see what other Cafecito colleagues are willing to step up with a couple bucks to get that $500 bill. Hey, Paul just donated. Paul, are you in for a hundy? I don't know if you put in a hundy. He said he just donated. Thank you for that. So I know that we've got at least 100 plus whatever Paul put in. but I want my Cafecito colleagues to help me grab that $500 out of Mark Fidel's wallet. So let's do that this morning. I'm going to go here and put us on gallery view so everybody can see Mark's smiling face, because I've never seen somebody look so happy to give away money. And I appreciate him doing that. Anam, can you tell me, how is it, Greg alluded to this. This is heavy work. I talked about despair a little bit earlier, and your stakeholders that you are assisting and lifting up, I suspect nearly 100% of them are in a state of despair. And so how do you every morning, tell us maybe a little bit about your mindset and how do you approach this work in a way that's so healthy? I mean, I came on with you this morning and I've had a heavy week. Like, it's no secret. When I have a heavy week, everybody knows it, right? Because it's usually, there's 3 cameras in front of me and there's 2 folks over here yelling at me. And it's usually pretty public when I have a heavy week. But I console myself knowing that I have my North Star, which is I do right and fear no one. I do the right thing. And that gets me to sleep very comfortably at night. And so that's how I approach my work. But I'm wondering for you, how do you do that? Because I know how heavy this work is. I mean, I've been a volunteer in this space. I just I hosted the Supportive Housing Coalition's annual event, and they rocked it, and we rocked it together. And I was so enriched by that because this stuff is personal to me. So I wonder if you could share with us a little bit kind of about the approach, because Greg alluded to it. He's at the office right now on this Saturday, and you're here with me. So can you help our Cafecito colleagues really kind of get a sense of how do you approach this in a way that is healthy? Because you asked me about my health. I didn't close the loop. I started talking about the camera bank and being in front of me this week, and I didn't get to the point. The point is, you came on my show and you checked in with me about my personal health. And that says so much about who you are as a human. And I'm just grateful for it. And I want you to share a little bit of that with our colleagues.
Thanks, Brian. That's a really good question. So I would say one thing about the despair, I actually find the people that we serve have so much light in them and so much joy. And in fact, I find them to be more resilient than, even than I am. And so I do drive a lot and get a lot from the people that we serve. HopeWorks has implemented a policy that all employees have to work 8 hours in the shelter a year. And part of the reason we did that was because we wanted all facets of the agency to be exposed directly, regardless of whether you're in finance or you're in admin, to really be in touch with our mission and to hear the stories. And I find the stories are really uplifting to me and they bring me a lot of joy. I do think that it helps, grounding myself every morning. I do believe this is God's work, and I feel very much like, St. Martin's was founded, by the Episcopalian community. Did we ever figure out how many years ago?
36.
36 years ago. So, it definitely, even though we are not a religious organization, we definitely are a spiritual one. And I would say that there is something to be said for providing food to somebody when they don't have food, or providing clothing and housing. And so there is a spiritual element there, and also relating to people in their lowest, wherever they're at. There is something very godly about that. And so I think that really also helps. And then, just like the community that we talked about for our clients, I feel like HopeWorks is a community for us unto itself. I mean, Greg mentioned that the employees, stellar employees. I mean, I've never worked at a place that had such high caliber, high performing people before. It's an inspiration every day to show up and know that people are bringing their best, their 150%. And we all lean on each other. I know we're going to talk about the co-model, but, we're really not hierarchical. We're all in this, we're all colleagues. And, just the other day, Greg and I had a meeting with the direct report, and we were honest and we said, this is hard, and it's okay. And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to fall, because that's the only way that you learn, and that's the only way you refine and you get better. And so just being that safety net for each other, I think really helps as well.
I love that. So there's kind of a collective conscience that supports one another in this work. And that's what I'm hearing, or that's what I'm feeling. And I think that's got to be very powerful. And I do think, yes, and We can talk about this on Cafecito Colón, because I am not a tax exempt organization. So I can talk about God, I can talk about religion, I can talk about faith-based, and not have to worry about my tax exempt status like some churches should worry about here in Albuquerque. But that's just a sidebar. I will just say that, spirituality and faith, I mean, in some ways that really is the best therapy daily, to be able to look into the eyes and see another beautiful creation that deserves to have dignity. And you can't have dignity if you don't have housing. And that's why the housing first model is absolutely critical. So HopeWorks is also starting, speaking of housing first, you've got your first single site project going on in New Mexico. This is really kind of visionary work in some ways. I know it's gone on in other places, but for New Mexico, this is kind of making people think slightly differently about the approach and the solutions that we need to be embracing. So can you talk about that first single site project here in New Mexico and what it means for those folks who are experiencing a lack of housing in Albuquerque? Maybe Greg, is that all right? Can I go to you on that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so Hope Village is going to be a one of a kind, and we've been working on this. Feels like for, it has been at least 3 years. There are a lot of partners, government partners, private partners involved in this. It's about a $12 million project, and it's going to bring online 42 units of permanent supportive housing right next to our day shelter. And what's unique about it, we throw terms out like single site, scattered site, and the general public doesn't always understand what we're saying. But scattered site housing, when Anna mentioned earlier, we house about 450 individuals and families every year. I mean, those are folks that we are working with landlords. These are situations where we are working with landlords in the community. We are finding scattered site housing. We're working with property managers, and we are helping to pay the rent for folks in these scattered site places, but they are largely run and operated by landlords, and they're integrated into the community, and they're all over town. For folks that have higher needs, higher barriers, maybe struggling with a substance use issue, a mental health issue, sometimes the hardest, most vulnerable, the hardest to serve and most vulnerable need extra attention and care and services right there that most landlords aren't equipped to handle. So what is going to make Hope Village one of a kind is that we are going to have 24/7 services available on the first floor of that building, which means we are absolutely going after the hardest to serve, most vulnerable folks that are living on the streets, because we want to prove to Albuquerque and to New Mexico and to elected officials that housing first really does work. Get someone into housing and just stand back and be amazed with the right supports, how quickly people can stabilize in and then turn around and find work within 12 months. I mean, we have seen miracles happen in other places. Why not Albuquerque? So the construction is underway. In fact, it's pretty far along. Hope Village will be complete in August of this summer. And we're going to be leasing that building up this fall, and we could not be more excited.
Well, I am to the moon. Way to go. I mean, great work over the last few years. I remember when the conversations first started. I want to give a shout out to, and maybe I'm wrong, and so no need to correct me, because I'm sure I'm not. I may be wrong in the way I'm framing it, but I'm absolutely correct no matter what about this leader's heart, because she took a chance. And she was one of the early elected officials who came out and said, we have got to be substantive in the way we address homelessness. And that means putting a shelter over people's heads. And I just want to say thank you, Debbie O'Malley, for being out in front on this conversation. When you're out in front, that shield that you carry may not protect you from those arrows. And I know that it didn't come without a price to lead this conversation early on. And HopeWorks I don't remember all the moving parts, but I just know on a personal note that I was there for some of those conversations where the Honorable Debbie O'Malley took the heat, and rarely is it followed by a round of applause. She just did the heavy lift. And from a political perspective and a public official perspective, those are our champions, the ones that are willing to just do the right thing. And in my opinion, Debbie O'Malley is that kind of elected official. So I just want, I'll let that, you can just leave that out there. Because some of my history may not be exactly spot on, but I know I was present for some of those conversations and she led. So I want to just give her a particular shout out this morning. Lots of elected officials. And let me tell you, when those units are completely, filled and the 42 families and individuals are housed and things are moving forward and it's a success, every elected official will say it was their idea. And every elected official say they were on board from the beginning. But I just want to say that Debbie O'Malley, I remember. That's it. I just want to say that. So let's go to you, Mark. Like you put so much time and effort into so many great organizations, but I know you are extremely intentional about which of those organizations get your time and resources. We've now raised $300. I want to say thank you to Paul Gutierrez. I want to say thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you to my wife for letting me give away our money because we're up to $300. So I need another $200 to get the maximum allowable from Mark Fidel. Got to get it out of his wallet. Mark, tell me why HopeWorks.
Sure. A number of years ago, I was introduced to an element of HopeWorks that at the time was not. It was Dismas House, New Mexico. And I served as a volunteer with Dismas House. And Dismas House was an organization. It was and is an organization that helps individuals coming out of our state prison system to have a transition and a path forward. Temporary housing, help with job skills, help with reintegrating into the community. The goal being to reduce and minimize the recidivism rate of people coming out of prison. One of the executive directors of Dismas House was Father Rusty Smith. He went on to become the executive director of HopeWorks at a time when HopeWorks was the board. I wasn't on the board at the time, but essentially it was, everybody looking at their calendars and saying, can we make payroll in 2 weeks? Right. Not are we serving our mission, but are we going to exist in another 2-3 weeks? Rusty, his capabilities tended to be turnaround, very much a turnaround artist. And his goal, as he was hired by the board, was to determine, do we have to, in an orderly manner, shut down and figure out, who else can pick up these resources, or can we turn this ship around and make this viable? And he asked me to join his board of directors at that point. I think this was 2011, 2012. And I am not a subject matter expert in homeless diversion and homeless assistance, but I think I have a pretty good mindset about running businesses. And again, nonprofit, right? That's a misnomer. It still should run as a business. You should still run it in a way that is able to sustain the organization and sustain the mission. And so Rusty was able to, along with a dedicated and focused board of directors and staff, make some painful decisions and turn it around. When we interviewed, Rusty, I couldn't put any more hills in front of Rusty to scale. And he took leave of the organization of his own volition, and we're still friends to this day. But then we did a search for our next, at the time, the title was executive director. And we went through a search process, went through interview process, and had the offer down. And, when you make an offer to somebody, to congratulations, we'd like you to become our next executive director. And their response is, let me think about it for a few days and get back to you. That was a problem, because that individual, by his own admission, shouldn't have been interviewing for the position. We actually declined. We actually pulled the offer before he could decline or not, and we reopened the search. And Greg was the successful candidate on the second round of interviews. And I asked him why he didn't see the first advertisement, but thankfully he didn't. And so he came to us about 5 years ago. And so my reasons are, it's a great organization that, if properly ran, can serve its mission. And as complex as it can be, I often turn to, is what we are doing as a board moving things forward for our clients? If the answer is yes, then I think we're doing the right thing as a board. If the answer is no, then that often ends up in a no vote, or something doesn't get to a vote at the board level. And so it's actually pretty simple. Are we improving the lives of our clients with our actions as a board as we're making these strategic decisions, right? And my honest philosophy about board leadership is that the board hires the exec or the CEO, and the co-CEOs then hire the staff. And they're the subject matter experts. They are the professionals in the environment. And so it's not up to me to come down below the board, the co-CEOs, and attempt to say, gosh, this personnel problem seems to be, no, we set up a structure for those issues to be dealt with. But at the end of the day, if we can improve the lives of people, then that makes it very much worthwhile for me to be involved at the level that I can be involved.
I love that. Thank you. Greg, tell us about this co-CEO model, and just in a nutshell, just super quick, because I want to give each of you a couple minutes to talk about the look forward and how people can engage. I know that Patricia said, look, you got to contact their office, you got to get involved, you got to volunteer. So we got a few asks that I want to make sure we get out there. We've got $300 in the door. I need to get a couple $100 more in. I did just put a link. I didn't want to fail to mention this week we've been grieving and celebrating the life of Father Golden, a tremendous leader at Santa Maria de la Vid, the Abbey. Many of us who were parishioners at Newman Center had a connection with him and know of his impact. And so I want to just quickly mention or shine a light on that life well lived and taken far too soon due to careless bad behavior, but on the part of a third party. Let me take it over to you, Greg, real quick on the co-CEO, because I do think it's fascinating. I don't think it's very common, and maybe you can give it to us in a nutshell, and then we'll go to Anam for her final thoughts, and then back to Greg, Mark, and then we'll close with Greg on your final thoughts. We got about I don't have to pay for airtime, so we can go a little bit over, but go ahead, Greg, take it away.
Sure. Well, I definitely do not want to be the only one to respond to the co-leadership model. I think the board took a chance with Anam and I. I think it boils down to having the two right people with complementary skills. Oftentimes, a CEO, a singular CEO in the top-down hierarchical, I would call it a tired model. Boards and the community expect the CEO or the ED to be an expert in accounting, to be an expert in fundraising, to be an expert in the mission, and to be an expert in the subject matter, to be an expert in human resources, and just to do everything. And it's just not realistic. And I think, as an organization, we're always trying to be innovative. Anam and I brought this to the board. Mark and the board took a chance. They voted unanimously to promote Anam as co-CEO, and I will tell you, it has been powerful. And I honestly think it's unfair to do a nutshell on this. I think you could do a whole show on co-leadership and why more nonprofits should do it. But I think you have to have the right people with the right skill set. So I'd like to, if I have time, to kick it to Anam and or Mark to also offer their perspectives on that.
Sure, Anam, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, my internet was a little unstable there. So if I jumped off, that was the reason.
Yeah, you're perfectly stable now. You look great.
Okay, good. It doesn't represent my mental stability, but anyways, so I would just say, along with what Greg was saying, our agency has become so large and so complex that it absolutely makes sense for two people with complementary skills to be minding all of the facets of the agency. I also think that it's a very supportive model. It's kind of lonely being at the top. And so when you've got two people, you can it goes back into the community piece that we were talking about, being able to have a community even at the top where if, you're having a particular difficult conversation with somebody, something that's very important, you have someone that you can talk to, run it by, really vet, and And so I think that that is important there at the top. And then just, last words, I just want to say thank you again, Brian, for having us on the show and highlighting HopeWorks. All of us on this call, I think, can say that this mission and this work is very important to us. And, in terms of what people can do, I think this is a great step of just learning more about what we do, the awareness piece. I don't know if a lot of people know specifically what we do and why it's a community issue and why we all need to be involved. Along with being involved, proximity to the issue, it's easy for folks to say, well, you know what, not in my backyard, when they're not there around our clients or seeing what our folks experience every day firsthand. So I would say come down to the shelter, take a tour, come volunteer even, host HopeWorks leadership to come and speak with you and talk more about our mission. And then lastly, I do want to say, HopeWorks is starting to examine how, structural racism has actually led us and actually created homelessness. And I think it's important to point that out. And for people who may be beginning in their journey, they may not understand that. But HopeWorks is absolutely committed to looking at how to dismantle those barriers, because unless we do, we're actually going to keep contributing to the problem. We're actually not going to fix it. So for folks who want to learn more about that work, that very important intersection, absolutely reach out to us and we'd be happy to include you all in that journey as well. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. Well said. Mark, any thoughts on the co-CEO model or final thoughts on the good work at HopeWorks? And let me just say, I posted the link to donate. I just did it while our guests were speaking. It's done. It was easy. And I want you to join me. So let's make sure we don't let Mark keep any of those $500 in his wallet that he's ready to turn over to HopeWorks. As long as I can raise the money this morning, I'm 300 down, 200 to go. Please join me.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for your generosity and your kindness in allowing us to here today. The co-CEO model is I think it has its specific places in specific points in time in an organization's life. We're still examining, we're still understanding the benefits. There's some obvious benefits that have come up pretty quickly, and we're still examining and making sure that it works. What I sincerely appreciate is the transparency and the clarity that I get from both Unum and Greg in terms of how things are going. We communicate quite frequently, as you might assume, both electronically, both video, and now thankfully more and more in person. And so I think we have a pretty good check on the pulse of the organization. And but the co-CEO model and Unum and Greg maintaining those positions, they have the full faith of the board. And what's obvious to me from an objective, if I'm looking at this objectively, is that the good work of the organization continues solidly. And if somebody has an opportunity to visit the site, great, to make it a visit personally to the organization to see what it's all about, that's great. And for those who are listening, if you have the opportunity to offer your time, talents, and treasure to serve on a social profit board, please consider that. There's a number of great organizations that can use your assistance. Thanks, Brian.
I love
Great
it.
Show.
You are more than welcome. I want to take just a minute to say happy birthday to JFK. Today is his day, so think about your impactful quotes from JFK, because I think he lives on through his quotes, most importantly, and many of us embrace those on our journey. But today, maybe read A Profile in Courage. The older I get, the quicker I can get through that book when I read it. When I was little, I felt like it took me forever to get through that book, but I can now read it pretty quickly, and it still inspires. And so happy birthday on the anniversary of the birth of John F. Kennedy. Jason Sandell, Jerry's son's birthday is today. I think Jerry served with your dad, Mark. I think there was a little bit overlap. Robin and Andrew, happy anniversary. And another incredible Albuquerque leader and philanthropist and business entrepreneur extraordinaire, one of the founders of AED and every other incredible business organization I think he's been a part of. But Al Vio, happy birthday. Grateful for you. I love that you're in my life. We send love to you and Emma, and we look forward to our next brunch together. Easter with you was a blast. And so just a couple folks out there, I want to say thank you to Kristen for sharing such a beautiful post about the impact of HopeWorks. Kristen Muniz, Kristen and Jonathan, we're grateful for you pouring into HopeWorks and supporting their good work. I am going to give Anam an opportunity to close us out strong with her final thoughts, and I'll just offer up my gratitude. I want everybody to have a beautiful and safe week out there. Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend. Please take some time to honor those who have fallen and given the ultimate sacrifice. It is a day off, but it's also a day when we should all be taking some time to reflect upon the beautiful nation we live in, but also importantly, those who are in need around the world. And we can start right here by addressing the issue and the needs of those who are right here in our community. And the vehicle to do that with today is HopeWorks, as they work to end homelessness here in Albuquerque. And they've been doing it for 36 important years, 42 units. Imagine, it's coming, it's being built. They said it couldn't be done, but we're showing them that yes, we can.
Thank you again, Brian. Thank you for having us on the show. And I just want to close with a quote that I read recently by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who said that love is an act of heroism. And I believe that when we love and we gather together and we love each other, including those who are unhoused, we're all heroes in the story. So I want us all to just love each other and work to support this work. It's important.
Well, it's amazing. Thank you for closing on that note of love. You know, in my Thursday morning 6 a.m. men's group, we talked this week as we were reflecting and contemplating. We talked about God doesn't just love, he is love. And so when we embrace God or that higher power or that thing in our life that gives us source energy, we are lifting one another up in and of itself in that action. And so let's embrace love. Let's support the work of HopeWorks right here, doing the heavy lift for nearly 36 years. And we're grateful for them. And we're grateful for these two great co-CEOs. We're grateful for the board leaders, for all of our social profit organizations. This work can't get done without volunteerism. And so we appreciate the volunteerism and the servant's heart that Mark Fidel brings everywhere he goes. And we're grateful for him stepping up with some cash. They've already taken it from my Southwest Visa. I know that Paul Gutierrez already gave it on his card. I know that Lynn Troyan has already given it. And I know that the team will watch for any other donations that trickle in, because we're going to get every one of those $500 out of Mark's wallet. So if the co-CEO,
I'll just assume $500, Brian, and just make that.
All right. Thank you, Mark. There's
Yeah.
that servant's heart. Let's close the loop. We want $1,000 in the door for HopeWorks today. That's my goal. That's Mark's goal. I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate you joining me today on Cafecito con Colon. It's been enriching. It's been uplifting, and the work goes on. And let's do it side by side with HopeWorks right here in Albuquerque. Thank you so much.
Safe travels,
Bye.
Brian. Thank you.